So week number 10, and the topic I chose to share with you today is which came first, the chicken or the egg. I don't know that we will solve that age-old question today, but we'll definitely get to learn some things about chickens and eggs today. If you can still see my virtual background, these are my chickens at my house in Horseshoe Bend. And so I get kind of excited to talk about livestock, talk about chickens, actually any animals. So at first, introduction, if this is the first time you're joining us, or just if you need a little reminder, who are we? University of Idaho Extension. We bring the knowledge and research of the University of Idaho to you, where you live, when it's convenient for you. We're leaders in building a thriving, prosperous, healthy Idaho. That reliable research-based information is provided through a network of faculty and staff across all the counties in the state, and as well as our recognized tribal areas as well. And I want to highlight just one part of what we do in Extension today with a short video. And today we're going to highlight the 4-H program.
Idaho youth are learning about science, technology, engineering, and math through fun, hands-on activities offered by the University of Idaho Extension 4-H Youth Development. From straw rockets to robotics and aerodynamics to drones, 4-H is preparing Idaho's next generation to solve tomorrow's problems.
The 4-H program is near and dear to my heart, and if you are interested in being part of the 4-H program in your area, I believe Brad will post a link in the chat of how to find the extension office near you, how to find the programs closest to you. We also have a poll for you to, so we can get to know you a little bit better, a little bit about where you come from and how many times that you've been part of this program. Just as we're getting that started, I'll tell a little bit more about myself. So as Brad mentioned, I'm the extension educator in Gem and Boise counties, and my focus area is livestock, small farms, and 4-H youth development. I just recently published an extension bulletin, which is a multiple page publication about livestock care for beginning and small scale producers, some basics of how to get started if you're new into livestock. I also teach small acreage management courses throughout the year, and I supervise staff and volunteers in the 4-H youth development program for Gem and Boise County. So I get to do both counties. Boise County is small and Gem County is a little bigger. So as I mentioned, we're going to talk about chickens today, and I get super excited about chickens. We taught a course earlier this year for small scale poultry producers in Idaho, and I got really fired up about chickens and dove right in. I bought baby chicks for my birthday. That was my gift for my husband this year, was 8 baby chicks. 4 of them ended up being roosters. Luckily, somebody took them off my hands for me. But just as a, let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing for a second and so I can see your faces or see you. Anybody in the group have chickens themselves? You can raise your hand, use a reaction. I'm curious to see if anybody has any chickens out there. Kathy had 4 chickens a few years ago. Great. That'll kind of help me know where we're at here. So there are lots of different breeds of chickens, and depending on where you look, some websites say hundreds of chickens. Some say recognized breeds is 53. Well, the thing about it is chickens cross in breeding, and then you get new varieties of chickens, and there are some that people recognize and some that people don't, organizations. And so some are best at making meat. Obviously, we like to eat chicken, and then some are best at laying eggs. And then there's some breeds that are good at doing both. And there's some that are really fun to look at, like this white crested black Polish, because he's got a big fluffy head of feathers. And there are others that have feathers on their feet, like this gold Brahma. So then they have little fancy feet. So chickens are just a really interesting critter. I have a friend that there's some research that says they're evolved from dinosaurs. So if you just picture like the velociraptors in like the Jurassic Park movies and how they run, it really does look like how chickens run. So they are really an entertaining critter. And if you don't have chickens yet, and you're thinking about getting some chickens, some of the things that they need are the same things we need. So they need fresh water every day. They need shelter. A lot of people think, oh, I got to create this. So this is an example of a chicken house. And you wouldn't be able to house very many chickens in that little chicken house. But some people think, oh, I got to keep them super protected. And that's partly true. Just like we like to eat chicken, so do a lot of other animals, you know, like raccoons and wild other people's dogs and all of those kind of things. So you have to keep them protected from predators. But really, when it comes to like insulation, they just need to be kept protected from the rain, from snow. They can handle getting cold, but they can't handle being wet and cold. So drafty places aren't good for chickens, but they need good ventilation in their houses and kept protected from the elements, but not necessarily totally insulated from the elements. And of course, just like us, chickens need food. And something that's really neat about chickens is they can live out on pasture. So they eat grass, they eat plants, they eat bugs, that you can feed them back, store-bought food out of a bag. But something that's unique about chickens don't have any teeth. And so they also need a certain amount of grit in their diet. And grit can be something that's purchased as a calcium and or a lime product, but they can also pick it up when they're eating, just out and about, like they'll get little bitty pebbles or pieces of sand, and that helps them digest their food. You may have to be careful about having your chickens just out in your yard all the time because yes, they eat grass, but they also might think that your garden vegetables are pretty tasty too. So they can be kind of destructive that way around your yard. This year, I had to lock my chickens up in a little house similar to this one because my husband had planted new lawn and he didn't want the chickens scratching up the seeds and eating the baby grasses. And so we had to lock the chickens up for a bit. Some benefits to chickens. They are really great at bug control. They eat ticks and they can even eat snakes. And also, if you're in a pasture setting, they could go behind, like say you have livestock in the pasture and they might have worms or some kind of parasites in their waste. The chickens could eat those parasites and break the cycle of the parasite in that pasture. And while they're hunting and pecking around for bugs and weeds and whatever, they're also depositing little bits of fertilizer everywhere, right? So they can help improve the soil that way. And then of course, benefits of eggs and meat and companionship and of course, entertainment. It's pretty amazing what people have done with their chickens. Chickens can be trained to do tricks. They can, and they're just so entertaining. I think it's hilarious. I've not bought these for my chickens, but I think it's hilarious that you can buy little arms to put over your chickens and it makes it look like they have little tough arms or thumbs up or this chicken with overalls on. I just think is adorable. Some things about, so I'm going to switch a little bit and talk about eggs, and we'll talk about eggs for the remainder of our time together here. So myths and facts. Facts. Eggs are nutritious and delicious. Tastes just like chicken, right? So the eggs are a good source of protein, fat, vitamins, and minerals. And there's lots of different ways you can prepare eggs. I'd be curious if you want to put in the chat what your favorite way to eat eggs is. I'm kind of I don't know about plain Jane, but I'm a scrambled egg fan myself. Or, you know, when combined with flour and chocolate into a cake, that's always a good way to eat eggs too. And another fact about chickens, a chicken can lay an egg a day, nearly an egg every day. It takes them about 10 hours or 23 hours to make an egg. So you just kind of keep making eggs. And the older the chicken gets, the less eggs that she'll lay. So as a chicken gets older, might lay every other day or every couple days. This is a pretty big myth that I wanted to bring up. The myth is that brown eggs are healthier. And what's really interesting about that is different breeds of chickens lay different types of eggs. So there's certain chickens that lay eggs that are blue colored or even kind of an off-white or a pinkish color. And then there's white egg layers and there's brown egg layers. All the same kind of egg, just comes in a different package. So it doesn't have anything to do with the health of the egg. The diet of the chicken has the most to do with the health of the egg, of what the nutritional value of that egg. And then that last fact is something we're going to talk about a little bit more, that the eggs are naturally protected from bacteria. Excuse me. So when a chicken is wanting to lay an egg, she's trying to reproduce. She wants to have baby chicks. And if there's not a rooster around, the egg is just a source of nutrition. And so when she lays that egg, she wants it to be safe until she can lay enough eggs to sit on the eggs and hatch out a batch of chicks. So a chicken might only lay an egg every day, and then after 10 days, 2 weeks, she might have a good little clutch of eggs there, and then she'll sit on them. And so that egg, when it's laid, it comes out with this natural seal around it called the bloom. And the bloom protects the egg from bacteria getting in it, as well as keeps it fresh longer. So if you've ever collected fresh eggs and you went to wash it, it's just kind of a little film. You can feel it when you're washing the egg. And what it means is, what it does is, because the eggshell is porous like a sponge, it keeps all of the air that is in the egg and any of the nutrients in the egg and anything that's not supposed to be in the egg outside the egg. So let's talk a little bit more about the anatomy of the egg.
Rebecca, there's a quick question in the chat.
Ooh, okay.
Do different colored eggs have different flavors?
Oh, that's a great question, Rachel. Thank you for that. The flavor of the egg is also related to what the chicken is eating. So if like your chicken all of a sudden gets into a big batch of onions, like so, if I know there's some farmers that feed seconds from onion farms to like their sheep, and if a chicken just went to town on eating onions, her eggs would probably taste a little off flavored. And the flavor of the eggs depends on the diet of the chicken. Great question. So this is a diagram of the egg, and if you at your house have an egg that you want to crack on a plate, you could kind of look at this with me. So of course we have the shell on the outside, and then inside we have thick albumin, or the white of the egg, and thin albumin. So and I have some pictures that I'll show of some eggs that I cracked yesterday at my house. And then these little stringy things are called the Shellless Egg, and it holds the yolk in place in the middle of the egg. And there's of course the yolk, and the color of the yolk will also change depending on what the chickens are eating. And the yolk is encased in a membrane, so that holds the yolk all together. Like when you have an over easy egg and you break the yolk and it just kind of oozes out, that's that membrane. The Germanic disc, and it can be kind of tricky to find the Germanic disc, but that is if the egg was fertilized, that's where the baby chick would grow from. So the yolk isn't the baby chick. It's just if it was fertilized. It's just this little tiny spot on the yolk. And then as the chick grows, it uses the yolk as its nutrition source to grow bigger. And the air cell. So the air cell is at the large end of the egg, and it increases in size as the older the egg gets. So that's going to impact the freshness of the egg. And we'll talk about freshness here next. Okay, so these are some eggs at my house, and I had a hard time finding eggs old enough to make this picture super dynamic. But so there's 4 eggs in this bowl, and 2 of them are laying on their sides. Like I just set them in the water. So it's a bowl with water in it, just tap water. It's not warm, it's not cold. It's just water in a metal bowl. And I set the egg in the water, and the egg naturally, I set it in like this, and the egg just laid down on its side. So the 2 eggs on the left are laying on their sides, and the 2 eggs on the right, can you guess which end is up? The big end is up. So it's standing up because that air likes to float, right? So that end of the egg is kind of floating in the water because those eggs are less fresh than the other eggs. I think the eggs on the left were probably from earlier this week, and the eggs on the right were probably from about a month ago or so. So still pretty fresh. Freshness doesn't necessarily have anything to do with safety or quality, well, possibly about quality, but not about safety. Both of these, all 4 of these eggs are safe to eat, and it's just about the freshness. So now I crack these eggs open, and let's look at what I see when I crack the eggs open. On an egg that's more fresh, you can see the difference. There's a ridge of that thick albumin, that thick white, and there's not very much thin white even around. So the thin white is, you can see on the edge, and then there's this ridge right here where the thick white comes in. And on the fresher eggs, you can see the Shellless Egg more prominently. So here they are on this side, and here's the other one on this side. And then right here in the middle is the Germanic disc. Had to crack a couple eggs to find a good example of the Germanic disc, because if you crack it just right, it could end up on the bottom, and there's no way you can turn that yolk over without it cracking. So I cracked, I think, 6 eggs before I got these pictures just right yesterday. So we're going to have breakfast for dinner tonight. On the right side is the less fresh egg. So you can't hardly tell a difference between the thick albumin, the thick white, and the thin white. And that just is a sign that the egg just isn't as fresh. You can still see the Germanic disc there, but it's much more difficult to find the Shellless Egg. I think they're right there, but it's just not, they're just not as well defined the less fresh the egg is. So if you were somebody that liked to eat, I saw, let's see in the chat, people liked over medium with bacon and sausage, scrambled, hard boiled, over easy. Okay, so if you're an over easy kind of egg lover, the ones that would make the best over easy egg, like that would look the prettiest, would probably be the more fresh eggs, because there would actually be it wouldn't spread out in the pan like this less fresh one over here, right? It would be more compact. It would just stay in that one place when you crack the egg into the pan. So that's something about the freshness of your eggs. It doesn't mean they're bad. If an egg is bad, you'll be able to tell. It'll have an off smell. There could be an off color. So these are just a way to test if the eggs you have in your fridge, how fresh they might be. And they're always, you can still use them in different ways. So you might not use them as an over easy egg, but you might make those brownies or that chocolate cake with them, and it wouldn't matter either way. All right, so I have a bonus activity that I wanted to share. I hadn't planned to do this originally when I said I wanted to do this class, but this activity, I'm calling it the Shellless Egg. Sometimes you might see instruction for it called the naked egg, but that word might be a little, I don't know if everybody likes that word. So we're going to call it a shellless egg. And it's a trick to be able to take the shell off the egg. And I took these pictures yesterday because I wanted you to see what a mostly finished product looked like. And so you just need a glass or a cup or a dish of some kind that you can put an egg in. This was one of the eggs that was in the freshness test. And so it's kind of wet from being in the bowl of water. And I put him in the cup, and I poured vinegar over the top of the egg. And so this is what it looks like after the egg is immersed in vinegar. And it kind of is like a soda pop. Like you can see the bubbles raising off the egg, and what's happening is that the vinegar is eating the eggshell. So this was just this afternoon. I wasn't sure if I could show it on camera, but I practiced before you all got here, so I think I can show it on camera. So you can see around the edge here that there's this brown little particles floating in the vinegar, and that's the eggshell. And I took the egg out of the vinegar, and you can see how the eggshell is coming off of the egg. And then I don't know if you can tell in this picture on the far right, but I'm actually squeezing the egg. So let me stop sharing my screen and I'll show you. So this is the egg in my glass. Let me get vinegar all over my computer here. That would be bad. So I'm grabbing the egg out of the shell. Move this over close to the camera. So the egg is, oh, I worried about this, so you couldn't see it. The egg is almost see-through. Like I'm rubbing the shell off of the egg. I'm rubbing the shell off the egg, and if you can, you can see the yolk in there. And if you can tell, like I'm squishing the egg. Whoop, It's bouncy. If I drop this on my desk, it would bounce. It wouldn't break though. It's still pretty strong. The layers inside the egg are strong, but it is very bouncy and is no longer hard. I imagine you could still eat this egg if you really wanted to, because it's just been soaked in vinegar. It might be kind of taste like a pickle, I suppose. But that is the magic of vinegar in the egg. Really pretty cool. I don't know. Eggs are kind of incredible. Chickens are kind of incredible, I think. And that is what I had to share with you today. Does anybody have any questions? You can unmute yourself or post them in the chat. Does it feel like a water balloon? It does kind of feel like a water balloon. Yeah, it really does. That's a good representation.
Kathy has a question as well, Rebecca. What makes
an egg have a double yolk? A really talented chicken. It's not any kind of special anything, except that in the process of making the egg, that chicken just got ahead of itself essentially and didn't form the shell around each of the yolks as it's passing through the I don't know if there's a specific name for it, the canal inside the chicken that makes where the eggs are formed. It just happens accidentally sometimes. I don't know if I could find it really quick. I got eggs at my house one day, and these chickens in these pictures, they're kind of older chickens. So a lot of times when chickens are first learning to lay eggs, they'll lay little eggs and random sized eggs. And my old chickens were laying, I found an egg that was about this big. And usually my eggs are about this big. I was like, well, that's really weird. And I cracked it, and the only thing in there was white. There wasn't a yolk in the egg. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I made a joke when I posted it on my social media that my chicken was diversifying her egg business and was only going to start laying whites now for the folks that just want whites and not yolks in their eggs. Oh, if a double yolk is fertilized, would you get twins? That would be a really interesting research. I'm not sure how two baby chicks would fit inside an egg. A lot of times the double yolk eggs are bigger, but technically if both yolks have a Germanic disc, then they could. I wonder if the chicks would fail just because the size and the room inside the egg, but that's a really great question.
I had a quick question, Rebecca. What about the color of the yolk? You know, I've cracked open some eggs that have that deep orange and then that light yellow. What causes that?
It's just straight up the diet of the chicken. So if the diet of the chicken is like the same thing all the time, a lot of times in commercial chicken operations, they feed the same ration every day, all the time. And so their eggs have less flavor, and they actually have a little bit less dense nutrition, but and the color won't be as vibrant. Whereas like my chickens, they free range most of the time, except when we're growing new grass at my house. And so they might be eating horse poop or ticks or grasshoppers, the squash bugs out of my garden. They might eat all kinds of different things. And so that will make the yolk darker and actually bring out some really awesome flavor. My mom, it's funny, my grandma, they had 100 chickens every year that they would raise for meat and for laying. And my mom loves chicken art. And she has lots of chicken things around her house. She cannot stomach the taste of a farm fresh egg. She would rather eat the store-bought bland eggs all day long. And one time I brought them home to her, and she made her Christmas rolls, and the rolls were actually golden yellow in color, even though they were white bread flour, because the eggs were such a strong yellow color. And she wouldn't eat them. Is the shellless vinegar egg the one that you use in a magic trick? Possibly. I've not done a magic trick before, but it could be a good magic trick. It takes about 24 hours for it to happen though, so I'm not sure that would be you'd have to plan ahead. I like Nick's idea to be able to place the shellless egg in different combinations of liquid be able to see the process of osmosis. That's a great idea. And then Kim's question, what size or age of the bird can you stop worrying too much about hawks or other birds of prey? I'm not sure you can ever stop, actually. If a hawk is determined enough, they will take out the big birds just as well as the little birds, whether they're big breed birds or small breed birds, older birds or younger birds. We just had our county fair last week, and the kids that were showing chickens, like, were constantly making last minute changes to, oh, I can't bring that bird to the fair. He died last week because a hawk attacked it. And we were talking about that maybe part of, we're in a drought, right? And some of the small prey, like mice and other things, that maybe the big birds are running out of that little prey, and maybe they've switched to more chickens, because it sure seemed like a lot of people around here were losing chickens to hawks, which is a real bummer.
We got about 1 minute left. Any final comments or questions for Rebecca?
And I hope that you try the shellless egg at your house and see how it turns out. All right, that's all I got. Appreciate your time, folks.
Thank you all. And as we leave, I'm gonna play one of my favorite songs. So thank you for attending very much.